Looking at this aerial survey map, you wouldn't think for one moment that it's telling us much about the Verlorenvlei. But perhaps it does show that in those days there was not a lot of any kind of reed along the banks. And this proves the point. Within less than 20 years, there were plenty of reeds. Why? Just for now, let's call it the Eskom factor. Eskom gave the chance for a poor farmer to become a rich farmer, if you had water, that is. We came to the Westkust in 2005 to get away from a dysfunctional city, and it took us a while to discover the Westkust was no less dysfunctional, just different. The first fire took us a bit by surprise, but so did the rapid growth of reeds shortly afterwards. We thought it was just the rain. The returning bird life loved it. They made nests. And the southeaster blew, and between the two, plus phragmites' ingenious system of rooting and shooting, like a well-disciplined Roman army general, phragmites advanced relentlessly across the vlei. No wonder the landowners chose to burn their reeds when they were becoming a serious problem. This fire in 2011 burned hectares of reeds and some valuable property in the process. This fire burned on the eastern shore from Grootdrift to Koopmansdrift, and on the western shore from Grootdrift to Muishoek. Clan William firemen put it out just before it could burn down Tannie Lena's heritage longhuis. But phragmites reed loves a good burn, and in a matter of weeks it was back up again and out of control. In the old days before Eskom, farmers used to burn the reeds to provide grazing for cattle. But cattle only graze the edges and the very tastiest green shoots. The 2008 floods brought down not just water, but plenty of silt and nutrients from the fields and river systems upstream. In a couple of years, you couldn't see the road for the reeds. So the reeds were cut, giving jobs for the unemployed and making the intersection safer for the holiday season and improving the flow, so that these elegant road users could do just as they please. Scenario planner Clem Santo once said to me, "Do what you can with what you have." And between 2009 and 2012, I began keeping the channels open on this particular reed island, using hedge clippers. At a reed workshop in Stellenbosch earlier in the year, I'd learned that if you cut far enough below the surface to keep out the light, the roots rotted and died. So I started cutting as low as I could reach. But a new threat was on its way, starting with tiny threads leaving seeds behind. Fed by nutrients from upstream and working in cooperation with phragmites, it's busy taking over more and more of the vlei's shallow reaches. By 2013, it had clogged 2/3 of this southern bay. The birds simply love it, and we have no fancy kingfisher machine to keep it below the surface for canoeists like they have in the Marina de Gama. Even the areas unaffected by duckweed used to look like this bay, but now are almost completely closed in and overgrown with phragmites. And where I'd cut when the water level was still too high, it had regrown. Not a lot, but very discouraging. So I tried again, and each time a little lower as the water level sank. Not very scientific. For the first time in years, the water level now was low enough to cut at ground level. And a year later, there was no regrowth. So, the method works. Is this the way to go? Maybe one of them. It was a small victory, a drop in the ocean, but what about landowners like Sandra Prinsloo, who used to have a view? Helican Cottage now looks at almost solid banks of reed. And De Uva has the same problem. With water levels fluctuating, it's quite practical to clear larger areas before the rains come. And why not? But the problem remains. Over 30 years, vast increases in silting due to causeways, dams, obstructions, and high levels of nutrients from upstream have turned this into this. And from this to this. There's a lesson to be learned from this nature reserve and birdwatcher's paradise. Someone forgot to check what was happening upstream. They spent a lot of money on tourist infrastructure, only to find that the farmers upstream thought the water was for them. So the pan dried up, and the birds went somewhere else. Now we can blame modern farming, alien growth in rivers upstream, dams, over-abstraction and pollution. But if anyone is to blame, it's us, all of us. Civil society, government, business, agriculture, the lot. And it's time we started learning to cooperate, listening to each other, finding out the best solutions, and doing it. The natural world cooperates. Perhaps it's time we stopped trying to compete all the time for money, resources, approval, you name it, and learn to cooperate. In my view, where it concerns the environment, political will by any political party has brought us 20 years of precisely nothing. So it's up to civil society, business and government bodies to do the job. And cooperation is quite simply the way to go.